keep saying, وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. O my Lord, O Muhammad, say, increase, my Lord, increase my knowledge. Increase my knowledge. Keep increase my knowledge. Subhana Rabbi al-Azim. So today, inshallah, we're going to discuss with Brother Imam Islam about the challenges children and the youth face in public school, how to deal with that, how to solve that, inshallah Rabbil Alamin. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the peace and blessings be upon His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It's very good to be here with Sheikh Ihab and with all of you. Subhanallah, when I was on Sheikh Ihab's program last week, I was thinking what ayat should I start with. So last week he started with the ayat I wanted to start with. And then this week he also started with the ayah I wanted to start with, which is in Surah Al-Mujadala, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا قِيلَ لَكُمْ تَفَسَّحُوا فِي الْمَجَالِسِ فَافْسَحُوا يَفْسَحِ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ وَإِذَا قِيلَ انشُزُوا فَانشُزُوا يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ وَاللَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرٌ. So in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, "Oh, you have believed," meaning the believers, they have an expectation in terms of how they conduct themselves. And this, by the way, even though maybe our target audience is the younger brothers and sisters, this is also for the adults, for me and for you, that if we call ourselves people of Iman, then there is a certain code of conduct that the people of Iman exhibit. For example, they do not lie, they do not backbite, they guard their chastity, they are modest in their speech, they are not extravagant or lavish in their spending. There's certain expectation that people of Iman, this is the way they conduct themselves. And we need to make a distinction between Muslim and Mu'min. So Muslim is the basic level, entry level is Muslim. But then if you want the premium level, you need to go to Mu'min. If you want the platinum level, you need to go to Muhsin. So Muslim, that outwardly we conform to the Sharia, to the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Mu'min is that it penetrates our hearts with loving Allah, loving His Messenger, and practicing with the khuluq, with the character of Iman. And then Muhsin is the platinum level, if you will. Muhsin is أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه, that you worship Allah as if you see Him. So you're not seeing other people, you're not seeing situations and circumstances, you're seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala behind everything, and you're worshiping Allah as if you see Him. If you do not see Him, to know that He sees you. So why do we start with this ayah? Because before we talk about the challenges, which I hope that our young brothers and young sisters will not be too shy that their parents are sitting. But when we get to the challenges, we want to hear from them face to face, one-on-one. Because I grew up in Austin. I went to school, elementary school in the 80s, graduated high school from Pflugerville High School in 1994, then went to UT, graduated in 98. So now I'm an older person. So we need to hear from the young brothers and sisters what the challenges are now. They may be similar to what I experienced going to public school here in Texas, but they may actually have changed. Maybe they're different, maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. So there's no way to know other than hearing from you directly. So we're not going to do a scientific survey of our youth, but maybe please participate. Inshallah, don't be shy. Maybe you can give us some anecdotal evidence. Maybe something happens at school, maybe a situation you handled in a good way that you can share with others. But before talking about the challenges, we have to talk about the opportunities, which is what the Sheikh started with, which is just the context of the verse. When you have a majlis, Everybody wants to sit close to who? If think back at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, especially the young people, you can answer these questions. If you were living at the time of Prophet Muhammad and he went to Masjid al-Nabi in Medina Munawwara, al-Nabawi, where would you want to sit? Where would you want to sit? Yes. As close as you can to the Prophet, right? But what if you came late? And if all the spots are taken already? So who is usually sitting closer to the Prophet? Who? Who do you think is usually sitting closer to the Prophet? Maybe even some names, yes. The people who came earlier, but especially who? Who were if you will, the ambassadors, the main ministers for the Prophet Muhammad, if you want to use that word? Like Umar radiallahu anhu, the second Khalifa, who else? First Khalifa, yes. Hamza before the Battle of Badr, yes. Abu Bakr before the Battle of Uhud, sorry, Abu Bakr, Umar. Abu Hurairah later. He came later, but he's the one who narrated the most hadith. But it would be people like Ahlul Sufa, which Abu Hurairah was from them, right? Uthman, Ali, Ibn Abbas, especially, yes. So these were the close ones. What if someone came late? They want to sit close to the Prophet. So then the Prophet would say, تَفَسَّحُوا فِي الْمَجَالِسِ, make space. Why is that? Because Islam is not exclusivistic. It's not exclusivistic. It's inclusive. It's not that there's an in-group and an out-group. This is the problem we run into. Like in the masjid, there shouldn't be, oh, this is the in-group and this is the out-group. These are the people who have their say goes in the masjid. Those people, it doesn't matter what they say. It shouldn't be like that. That's not the way of Islam. And that's actually the secret, how Islam benefited the previous civilizations and benefited from the previous civilizations. Because it wasn't like when the Arabs went into the Persian Empire or to the Roman Empire, they said, now you have to listen to us and you will do it. No, they said, what do you have of ilm? And how can we add it to the benefit of all of the people? Do you know that Imam Ghazali, one of the greatest scholars of all time, who combined so many different streams of Islamic knowledge, we're going to come to one of his quotes. He was actually Persian. But we think of him as Arab because he writes in Arabic, he speaks in Arabic, but he's Persian. If you look at Imam Abu Hanifa, the first great Imam of the four great Imams, his grandfather was from Afghanistan. But we think of him as Arab. Why? Because he's in Iraq and he spoke Arabic, he writes in Arabic, his Mosaad are in Arabic. Same thing if you start going also to the West. So if you look at the first Islamic coins in the Umayyad Empire, they used the same mint that the Caesars were using. But then on the other side, they also put La ilaha illallah. So they benefited from wherever they went. When they went to India, it doesn't matter. Why? Because we want to include. You have something good to offer? Let's just put it under La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah and give it to the people. So when you were told there's a gathering, it said make some space for the others. The idea of making space, when you make space for somebody coming into the halaqah, it shows you want them to be included. If you close the ranks and you say, oh, you go sit over there, astaghfirullah. This is why there's nothing better than the salah. Nothing better than the salah. You can't choose, okay, the Egyptians will be on this side, the Palestinians on this side, the Pakistanis here, the Africans here. No, it's all random. All different races, ethnicities, socioeconomic classes. But it is true, especially in the case of the closest to the Imam, should be the people of knowledge and especially knowledge of the Quran, should be in the front center rows. But in general, the Prophet, he wants to include as much people as possible, right? Then Allah said, so now how do we make differentiation? Because we have a part of us as human beings, we want to be different, we want to stand out. So why do you think kids try to make new fashions? They want to stand out. Or they copy other fashion and want to stand out. We have something. Like if you go to an award ceremony, I remember in my junior year in high school, there was an award ceremony. And then I put in my head, when I'm a senior, I'm going to win all the awards. Because I saw the people, they go up and they get a medal and everything. I thought, I'm going to get. So we want to be differentiated. We want to be. This is our nature inside of us. Of course, we should redirect it to make it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the service of humanity, which is pleasing to Allah, not just an egotistical thing. So how do we differentiate them? So then Allah said, يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, number one, the iman, which is only known to Allah. يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ, number one is your iman. Number two is, وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. You know, what do we say about Bilal radiallahu anhu? You know, we say, Sayyidina Bilal. If you translate that without giving divinity, of course, that would be translated into English as our master Bilal. Who was Bilal? He was once a slave, freed by Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. But we say our master Bilal. Why? Because of the iman and the ilm. Say Sayyidina Bilal. Right? Same thing about if you look at the tabi'een, Mawla so-and-so of so-and-so, the freed slave of so-and-so who became a great scholar and teacher. Or the women, of course, beginning with Sayyidah Aisha, who taught so many men. Why? It's not about gender in this case, it's her iman, her ilm. I'm sure you've seen this picture. So I'm sure you've seen this picture on social media before, where they have a custodian in one of the Gulf countries. He's probably one from the subcontinent, whether Pakistan or Bangladesh. It's very clear, but he's wearing custodian clothes, the guy who mops the floors in one of those wealthy Gulf countries. And he is the one leading the prayer. And the people behind him have their nice, what do you call them? You know, the ones that are gold and white. Not the statue, the one they put over it. What is it? The Saudis in the Gulf country, and the Arab flowing garments, which shows like prestige and wealth. They're praying behind him. What does that picture tell us? Why is the custodian leading them in salah? Why? Because his ilm. He has ilm of Quran. He's probably hafiz of Quran on top of that. So this is what this verse is saying. Whoever has iman and ilm, this is what you need to get out of your school experience. Don't worry about the challenges so much yet. Don't worry about all the, they're going to bully, they're going to look at me this way, this way. Your job when you go to school is to learn as much as you can. Your job when you go to school, اقرأ باسم ربك. If there's something atheistic about it, leave aside the atheism and take away the good knowledge. So if you're learning about astronomy, forget about the astronomers who say God doesn't exist, but learn everything you can, because they actually learned it from the Muslims in the first place, who also learned it from the previous civilizations, because it gets transmitted one generation. Your job when you go to school is to be number one in your class, not just to get an A or B+, but to be the best in your class in terms of academics and also in terms of your character. You might say, but I'm not good in school. Well, then work on it to be better at school. Maybe find the way that you learn. Everybody learns differently. Some people learn by reading. Some people learn by listening. Some people learn by doing. You need to find the way that you learn the best, and your parents should be helping you, because everybody learns differently. And then it's combination. Some people learn by writing. So whatever the case is, that's your job. And then this is how Allah will elevate you, is with the ilm. And this is why one of the quickest solutions for the problems in the United States is just to pay teachers a higher salary. To pay them the salary that engineers get. Even better, pay the teachers the same that doctors get. And then you will see what happens in this country. Because you will get the best of the best from going into the teaching profession. Right? If you're paying a kindergarten teacher $100,000, how do you think those kids are going to come out the best kids ever? MashaAllah. So utul ilma darajat, in many degrees, not just one daraja. So yes, we want to be inclusive of everybody, but if a person is of ilm, we give them the respect. Give them the respect. If they have knowledge of the Quran, of the Sunnah, knowledge of the sciences, knowledge of mathematics, knowledge of history, knowledge, whatever knowledge they have, you want to give them respect for the knowledge that they have, right? And then, at the end of the verse, Wallahu, so we said Iman number one is the biggest, which is not only to Allah. Allah knows the hearts, we don't know the hearts. We can try to extract, like for example, the Prophet said, alayhi salatu, if you see somebody regularly attending the Salah in Jama'ah in the Masjid, فَاشْهَدُ لَهُ بِالْإِيمَانِ. So we are making an external observation, and it's not necessarily 100%. We don't know, but وَلَا نُزَكِّ عَلَى اللَّهِ أَحَدًا is what we add. We don't say, like, this person is exactly this mu'min or not, but we try to make external judgments. But Iman is something between us. But ilm is measurable. Ilm is measurable. Knowledge is measurable. It's something, like nowadays, yes, you're getting degrees and credentials, which are important. But also when you sit with the person, when you hear a person talk, when you interact with the person, you can tell that they have knowledge or not. Whatever subject area they're talking about, you can figure it out pretty quickly. If you're a person of knowledge, you will know. Yeah, I mean, regardless of whatever titles they may or may not have. But then, what's after ilm? Wallahu, what's the point of you guys, young men, young women? What's the point of you getting a good, knowledgeable education in Quran, in Sunnah, in math, in science, in English, in history? In whatever language you like. I would recommend Spanish, especially if you're in Texas, or whatever language. I took Latin. Nobody speaks Latin. Nope. I took Latin in high school. Yeah, but it's the source of all the Romance languages. So what's the point of all of this ilm? So at the end of the verse, Allah tells us, وَاللَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرٌ. You don't want to just be alim, you want to be alim. So Allah, He knows very well what you do. So number one is what for the young people? What was the first differentiator between one person and another? Is there what? Starts with an I in English. An alif with kasra in Arabic. What was it? Iman. Okay, for the young people, what was the second way of differentiating between one person and another? Which one? Ihsan is the platinum level after Islam, and Iman is Ihsan. But according to the verse, what's the second way of differentiating between one person and another? After their Iman is there, starts with the Ayn. Ilm. We have to give a lot of respect to ilm. Right. And this is why the tragedy when the Mongols came into Baghdad and they said that the rivers turned black from the ink. Subhanallah. And of course there were corpses, I don't want to scare the kids, but in the streets. But even in addition to the life that was lost, so much knowledge was lost. Because they inherited the knowledge of the previous civilizations. They translated that knowledge. The Abbasids were very keen to get all the knowledge of the Greeks and the Persians and the Indians. And they had professional translating scholars translating into Arabic, and they went further and took it further. So, what's the third, the final way? So, first is Iman, to differentiate one person from another. Then the next one is ilm, knowledge. What's the third? Yes, the last one we mentioned. Maybe you know in the blue shirt. Y'all are just enjoying. I don't see the sisters, but usually the sisters are the ones who take notes. Yes. You can do that. The brothers say, oh, I already know this. I got this. What's the third one? After Iman and Ilm, what's the final differentiator? The biggest one is, it starts with the Ayn also. Yes, yes, is your amal, your action. If you're going to learn about atomic physics and solve the climate crisis, you should get 10 Nobel Prizes, not just one Nobel Prize. Because what did people do in the past? They learned about atomic physics and they learned how to destroy hundreds of thousands of human beings. Now they're coming up with new ways of weapons from outer space, like the Star Wars movies, which shoot lasers onto cities. They're using the ilm for destruction. You use the ilm for building and solving problems. Everywhere the Muslims went, they always were problem solvers. From the very beginning, who was the first problem solver in Islamic history? Who was the first one? Who do you think it was? Who was the first one who solved problems? Yes. In Islamic history, meaning in the final manifestation of Islamic history, which would be, yes, Prophet Muhammad. Even before he received Nubuwwah, before he received revelation, what was the problem when he came in? Especially the young people, I'm sure Sheikh Ihab told you the story. What was the problem when he came in and they were rebuilding the Kaaba? What was the problem he had to solve? The black stone. Do you guys know about the black stone? That's the only original piece of the Kaaba left. It's a great honor whoever gets to hold it and put it in its place. So each clan within the tribe of Quraysh, so inside Quraysh is the big tribe. And then inside the tribe there's clans. And inside the clans there's families. So each clan of Quraysh wanted to have that honor of putting the black stone. They were getting ready to, how do they settle problems? Not just in the old days, even nowadays. Okay, let's fight it out. So they're ready. Then the elders said, wait a minute, whoever comes in first, let them decide. Who came in? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How did he solve the problem? Who knows? Which one?
Share the weight between the tree.
How he did what?
Share the weight of the stone for all the tree put in it.
So he had a big cloth, put the stone in the middle, and had each major clan carry from one of the edges or corners and carry together. This is called, what they call now in English, they call it thinking outside of the box. Because he's from the clan of Hashim. He could have said, okay, the family of Abdul Muttalib, I'm from Hashim, then some other people would be upset. Or he could have said, oh, maybe from the Makhzum, or this one, or that one, or let's maybe do as what they used to do also. They used to draw lots. Let's put everybody's lot. These are the ways that they were thinking it could be solved. But he was like outside of the box. When was the other major, after Nubuwwah, the other major problem that he solved? This is from the very beginning of Islam. But it's the same thing when Muslims went into Africa, when they went into Malaysia and Indonesia, wherever there was some problem in farming, let's say rice farming, they figured out a way to maximize the water and minimize the water usage and maximize the yield of the rice crop, right? In East Asia, subhanAllah, right? When they came to Egypt, they solved the other problem. But what was the other problem Prophet Muhammad solved, alayhi salatu wasalam? Major problem that was going on for decades.
Killing destroy the wood.
Which one?
Destroying the Kaaba, the idol worshiper,
That's a major theological and belief system that he reformed through their own hands. But I'm talking about a social problem that the Prophet solved. That was going on for decades. I mean, there are many, but there's one that I'm thinking in my head. When the Prophet, I'll give you a big hint. When the Prophet came to Yathrib, what were they hoping would happen? And what did he actually do? What was happening in Yathrib? Young people, do they still have the same, I don't want to offend the parents, but do they still have Bloods and Crips? Do they still have that in the schools? They do still have it? Like these are the Bloods, these are the two major gangs in the United States. The Bloods and the Crips. The Bloods still wear red, and the Crips wear blue or something like that. Well, they're kids. We're not going to put a label on them, right? Because people, they want to feel that they belong to something, right? So what was it going on in Yathrib? What were the two? They're not gangs. They're two major tribes, but they come from the same mother, by the way, so they're actually cousins. Always the problem is between cousins. So what were the two major tribes in Yathrib? Aus and Khazraj. They were fighting each other, not just for 1 year, 2 years, for decade after decade. There was literally bloodbath. When the Prophet came, it was a civil war inside Yathrib, going generations. Prophet made peace between Aus and Khazraj. Now they love each other, they're brothers. It wasn't perfect because there were some problems and the Prophet had to calm them down again. But eventually, these two tribes, they had this ukhuwah and brotherhood. Okay, so coming to the challenges, inshallah ta'ala, because there are opportunities. Through iman, ilm, and amal, you can really change this world. And how do you change the world? You start locally. Like you think globally, but you act locally. And you follow the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and how he transformed the world. Okay? So yes, this is sunnah to have miswak. But it's also sunnah when you're in a society. He told Abu Bakr, okay, who is this tribe? What is this person? Abu Bakr, he is an expert in lineage. Said, oh, this tribe is this tribe, they have this problem, they have this thing, this thing. He knows what's going on in his society, and then he knows how to solve it. This is why I don't remember if it was Toynbee or one of the Western historians. He said if the Prophet were alive today, he could solve the world's problems over a cup of tea. What was it? Bernard Shaw? Okay. So, and he's saying that he's not just trying to make the Muslims feel good about Prophet Muhammad. It's because how he studied how the Prophet solved all the problems, not just some of the problems, but all of the contemporary problems of his time. He solved all of them in his time, and also put the seed for their solution for all time. Subhanallah. Okay. So some of the challenges, inshallah, but I want you also to focus on what we just finished talking about, which is you have great opportunities, okay? By having knowledge and by having the ability to act on that knowledge. The challenges, the first challenge is to have priorities that affect your decision making. What do I mean by that? When I set my alarm in the morning, on Monday morning when I need to go to school, do I set it for 7 a.m.? Because I need to catch the bus that's coming at 7:45? Or do I set it at 6 a.m. so I can pray Fajr before the sunrise? I think we all know the answer. 6 to get up and pray Fajr before sunrise. Which one is more important? Catching Fajr before sunrise or catching the bus before it leaves you? Catching Fajr. But that's the right answer. But many of us, including the adults, they usually prioritize the dunya thing. Like if they have a flight, especially an international flight, that's leaving the Houston airport and is leaving at 6 a.m., they will sleep the night in Houston, get a hotel, pay money. If it's flying out of the Austin airport and it's a 5 a.m. flight, and at 3 a.m. they will get their Uber or just drive down there and park their car. But they, including myself, who gets up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. to pray tahajjud? Like it's not the way we're thinking is different nowadays. But Fajr is more important than Tahajjud, by the way. So let's talk about Fajr first. How about when you're at school and it's time for Dhuhr Salah? So what's your priority now? Are you going to pray Dhuhr on time? Or are you going to wait, especially for the older boys and girls, and especially if you already reached puberty, that's in the series, but the age of 10 and up, are you going to have enough courage to go to your teacher or go to the librarian and say, I need to do my early afternoon prayer? Is there a room in the library? Or are we going to be like, I don't want them to even know that I'm Muslim? So we have to know. I don't know, maybe you guys are courageous, but there are others who are very shy. And they would prefer not to stick out. They would prefer not to ask. Right? So this is what I mean, this is the first challenge. Is if you're in a system that doesn't recognize what Allah has prioritized, which is number one, the salah on its time. That's the number one thing. That's the number one thing. The Prophet was asked, "Afdal al-a'mal." What is the best action? What did the Prophet say? What young people especially, what did the Prophet say is the best action you can do? Yes, so did you hear that? He didn't just say as-salah. He didn't just say the best thing you can do is salah. He said as-salatu ala waqtiha. This is why sometimes even as adults, they come to us as imams as well, especially those in the medical profession. They say, okay, I can pray Fajr at home, but I'm so busy in the hospital, so busy in the clinic, I end up praying Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha before I sleep. And these are practicing Muslims. What happened to ala waqtiha? I mean, you might say at least they're praying, but what's going to happen eventually is too much. To pray Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha before they're already exhausted when they get home. They want to just throw themselves on the bed. Now you're saying I have to pray 4 prayers. Right? So, as-salatu ala waqtiha. Praying in this time. Don't say, oh, I'm going to pray Dhuhr when I get home. Technically, you might catch it. You get home at 4:30 and Asr is at 5:13. Okay, technically, yeah, you caught it. But won't you feel better that you prayed Dhuhr in school, whether at 1:30 or 2 o'clock or 2:15, whatever it is, get a flexible time. You only need 10 minutes. Don't abuse it, right? Don't like say, oh, I need a break for Dhuhr, and then you take like 30 minutes long. Don't do that. Yeah. Yes, you can share, inshallah. That's one of the good things of the halaqah. What you want to say about PE? When do you start PE? 2? So maybe right before or right after the start of PE, you can pray Dhuhr, right? Yeah, you can talk to your coach. Just show them, basically, you don't want to get into a fight. Just show them that you respect, that they're your teacher, that they're giving you the time. And then explain to them, say, I'm a Muslim. Go to your coach. I'm a Muslim, I need to do my early afternoon prayer. Is there a place I can do it? Hopefully he will understand, especially if your coach will respect you to do it. If he says no, then you go to the next step. You go to the vice principal or principal, you get a letter from your parents saying this is a religious obligation, my son or daughter needs to pray. But you don't start with that step. You start with just going nicely to the teacher and say, can I use some time? Or you go to your coach and say, I don't want to go to the dressing room and be totally nude in front of others with me. I need a separate space. Or if you're on an athletic team, I don't know how they do the showers now, but in my time, they used to have open showers. As Muslims, we don't do that. But you can be a great football player, you can be a great basketball player, you might have really great skills, so go to your coach, say, is there like a private shower that I can use instead of using the one? So you have to advocate for yourself. Don't wait for your parents to do it for you, especially if you're in middle school, high school. Don't be shy. They say no? Then go to the principal and get a letter from your parents. Next step. If you're being respectful to them and being courteous to them and they say no, it's your legal right to practice, to pray in school. It's your legal right. They can't tell you no. However, you need to work, you have a flexible time, right? So you don't have to pray exactly at 1:38. No, you always have time. If you make priority, you will always have time. That's to change the way we think, right? Like if something is so important to us, we will make the time. Even if you're in a final exam, like I remember when I was at UT, we had like a final exam which was 3 hours long. That started before Maghrib and ended after Isha. So in the middle of the exam, I told the professor I need to pray my prayer. I just stepped out of the classroom, prayed 5 minutes, came back, continued the exam. If you want to do whatever you want to do, if it's a priority to you, you'll find a way to make it happen, inshallah. And when you take the initiative, then Allah will make it easy for you. You will see that in your life, inshallah ta'ala. Now, people will wonder, why is he different? What? And especially the thing about, again, I don't know how they do to take showers now, but especially the thing you want privacy when you change and you don't want to be exposed in front of others. Other students will start thinking, hey, I don't like it either. I don't like that either. Let me. They don't want to be. How come Muhammad gets a private? Okay, so this is the number one challenge: is Salah, which is the priorities, that Allah has set when you're in a society that may have different priorities. Like for them, they don't think the way you're thinking as a Muslim. For them, like you can pray at any time and you don't have to face a particular direction. You don't have to have wudu. You can even just pray in your heart. They don't understand when you say salah, I would be very surprised if they even knew what you were talking about. And that's why, as the Sheikh mentioned, it's an opportunity to make da'wah, to invite others. Okay? Don't be intimidated by your teachers. When it comes to Islam, 99% of the teachers know nothing about Islam. So jumping a little bit, if your history or geography teacher starts saying nonsense about Islam, or trying to say that Muslims are terrorists, especially when the anniversary of 9/11 comes, they all love to talk about, oh, these are Arabs, these are Muslims. When they talk about the Palestinians, these are terrorists, Don't just sit there and say, okay, I'm just going to listen. No, like, challenge. But based on knowledge and research and good questions. And if you can't do it, say, oh, teacher, I have a person in our community who's knowledgeable about the subject. Is it okay if they can come and talk to the class? Sheikh Ihab will be happy to go to your class. And all the kids will fall in love with him. They always fall in love with the Muslim speakers. Because the Muslim speakers, to be honest, they're the most logical. They don't say that Jesus is God and God doesn't die, but Jesus died on the cross. And you say, but God doesn't die, and how is Jesus God? And they don't say, oh, this person died, and then his soul goes into another person and becomes another creature. We don't say strange things. Like, it's very logical, very clear, right? So use those opportunities. The second thing besides priorities, the challenge, is how you fit in. And this is a big one, especially when you get to high school. Like when you go from elementary to middle school, all your friends will change, most people. Then when you go from middle school to high school, it changes again. And in high school, at least the high school I went to, everybody had a different clique. So there were the skaters, there were the preps, there were the druggies, there were the nerds, there were the jocks, the people in the athletics, and everybody makes in their own little group. And then also you do it along ethnic lines. This is the blacks, this is the Mexicans. This is high school in America. I don't know if it's still like that. Anybody in high school now? Who's in high school? Looks like this one and this one. We're all in college. But who is in high school or was recently in high school? So is it similar? Does everybody break up into little groups in high school now, or is it all mixed? It's all mixed? So there's not like groups like the people in athletics hang out with them. Is that the same experience with you, or is it like cliques? Did you both go to public school or public high school? Okay. So in any case, like as a young person, you're trying to decide, okay, which group do I fit in with? Like, okay, I know I'm Muslim, but do I fit in with the skaters, or with the nerds, or with the people on the football team, or with this group, or they probably don't have them now, but the goths, right? They were all, do they still have those? They were all black. But so, everybody said, who do I fit? And it's even harder for the girls. From middle school, it starts for the girls. Then it's like, oh, this is the popular girl. She's going to all the friends. She's got the boyfriend. She's got this, that. I don't have this one. This is the second major challenge after priorities, is how do I fit in and where do I fit in? So how do we navigate that? One approach is to say, I'm not going to deal with it and I'm going to just stay away from it. The other approach is to say, I'm just going to assimilate completely into whatever other group. And if my friends are playing basketball and after the basketball game, they're passing around something, I'm not going to mention what it is, because we have some young people, then I'll also enjoy it with them, no problem. So, do you think there's something in between or not? Usually Islam chooses a middle position. Do you think there's something in between complete isolation and complete assimilation? By the way, your parents are going through the same thing at work. Like at work, after work they say, let's go to the happy hour. They're telling them that. And that's how you move up at work. Some of them, socially, you get connected with people socially, and then you like each other and you help each other out. Right? So your parents are also going through similar things where they have to fit in at work. So is there a middle between assimilation and isolation? Do y'all know what assimilation means and what isolation means? Our young brothers, young sister.
I know what isolation means.
What's isolation? What does isolation mean to you? Being alone. Saying, I'm not going to be part of any group. Then they're going to say, what's wrong with that guy? He's weird. He's a loner. So it's not nice. But sometimes you have to be alone, right? Who is a prophet who was... all of the prophets at one point in their life were sort of alone. But who is the one most alone? Most alone. Most alone. Most alone. Think about him. Inna Ibrahim kana ummah. He was by himself an ummah. He rejected his father, not because he was his father, but because his father was from idols. He left his land. He had no one, right? So he was by himself. So at some point, all the prophets will have some degree of being singular and alone. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if everybody, as we mentioned in Sheikh's talk, if everybody's jumping off the cliff in front of you, are you going to jump off the cliff too?
No.
Maybe they're jumping off the cliff because they're blind. They don't see. But if you can see, like, like they're taking this step, and the next step, and the next step, and then the next step, they're falling down. If you're seeing and hearing that, why would you do the same thing? How would you be alone, right? Okay, so now you'll know what being isolated is saying. I'm not going to have anything to do with any of this stuff. I'm going to be by myself. Actually, there is a time in the Sharia, which is the hadith mentioned, when the fitan gets so intense, which I don't believe is now, but they get so intense, nobody listening to anybody else, everybody thinks that they're the, astaghfirullah, they're the ilah, and there's so much killing and bloodshed and so much complication, then maybe at that time, you should take your sheep and go into the mountain. Is there a mountain here in Khalid somewhere?
There is.
Go into the mountain with your sheep and find a nice cave like Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. When all the fitan started happening, he went, took some sheep and was out in the outskirts. His son was mad at him. Then his father got mad at his son. He said, you want me to fight over dunya? So in any case, isolation, in my humble opinion, is sometimes the answer, but it is not the final answer. But it is appropriate in certain occasions where, yes, you do have to stick out. And you just have to know that. Like, there are certain things which we cannot compromise on as Muslims. And so I'm not going to join in something, right? I mean, the easiest example, even though I don't want to get into a controversy now, the easiest example, why did Abu Bakr Siddiq in Mecca, before the ahkam, before the rulings, when he learned that he ate some food from the mushrik, why did he throw it up? How does a mushrik slaughter the animal? This is why Surah Al-An'am is Meccan or Medinan surah. It has the rules about halal meat in Surah Al-An'am. Is it Mecca or revealed in Mecca or Medina? The adults can answer this one. Medina? You think so? Okay, anybody think it's different? Surah Al-An'am, if you look in the Mus'haf, what is it? Mecca or Madani? You would expect it's Madani because it's ahkam. But why is it Meccan surah? It's a Meccan surah. Yeah, it's Tawheed and Iman. And what else is going on in Mecca? If they're going to slaughter a sheep, what do you think they're going to say when they slaughter a sheep if they're a mushrik? You think they're going to say Bismillah? What is he going to say? He said, Bismillah, astaghfirullah, Bismillah, Bismillah, Bismillah. So now you understand why we're so particular about halal meat. It's because it came from that context. They were slaughtering in the name of gods and goddesses. Lat is a goddess, Uzza. Manat is another goddess. They had female goddesses, and they had Hubal. They had 360 different idols. So they would go to that idol and slaughter a sheep. And they would say, in the name of this god or goddess. So when Abu Bakr Siddiq learned that he ate some food from a mushrik, he threw it up. Why did he throw it up? It's not because, oh, this is the halal meat, the way we're thinking about it. It's because it is slaughtered in the name of someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So sometimes you have to stick out. Like if the teacher is passing out pepperoni pizza that's not from a halal pizza place, you have to be the only one who's not going to eat it. Khalas. Even if 50 other kids are eating it and enjoying it. But you're a Muslim who wants to practice Islam. Even if there are other Muslims who are partaking, still you're like, no, I'm not going to do it. You might say, but they say, okay, everybody has their accountability in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is when it comes, by the way, I didn't want to open the debate about halal meat, but definitely my humble opinion is you want to do the first best is the meat slaughtered by a Muslim who says Bismillah Allahu Akbar, and then the ulama debate the other issues. We're not going to get into that right now. But now you see what the context was. They were slaughtering to idols and so on. So even if a person slaughtered technically Islamically correct, they cut the esophagus and the arteries and they did a horizontal cut and with the hand cut, because they took a hand. But he said, Astaghfirullah, he said, in the name of, I don't know, in the name of Zeus. Or in the name of, I don't know, Shiva, or I don't know, any god or goddess, or astaghfirullah, there are people who are making sacrifices to the devil. In America, there are Satanists who are like openly worshiping Shaitan. So they get animals, they make sacrifice for Shaitan. Are we going to eat that meat? No, that's what I said, isolate. You take your meat that you sacrifice in the name of Diablos, I won't eat it. I don't want any of that, right? Sometimes isolation is a must, but is it all the time? Probably not. What about assimilation? What does assimilation mean? What is assimilation? Again, this is relevant to all of us. To me, to the sheikh, to you all, to kids, to the adults. What about assimilation? This is a big debate in Europe nowadays. And also to some extent in America, but more in Europe. What's assimilation? Yes? Similar, okay, that's the right path, yeah? Right track? Similarity. So you become just like the people around you. And there's no way to differentiate between any of you, right? Historically, they used to call America a melting pot. What happens when you melt something? It all, yes? And it's indistinguishable from one another, right? Have you ever heard the analogy of salad bowl? This is one that Muslims who are in the middle like that analogy better. What is a salad bowl? Did anybody have salad today? Yes. So they're all in one bowl, but you can see, okay, this is lettuce, this is tomato, this is cucumber. So some people say, I want to think of America as a salad bowl, not a melting pot. Okay? Okay, so assimilation, do you think that's the answer? Obviously, I mean, you can probably tell that I would say, no, it's not the answer. We don't just copy every single thing. So what's the middle? Middle is very straightforward. You are whatever you are acculturated to is no problem, as long as there is not against an Islamic teaching, clear Islamic teaching or principle. So if you go up in Lahore, or you go up in Giza, or if you go up in Austin, right? Or if you go up wherever you are, you're going to take the culture of that place whether you like it or not. Like, I love college football, even though my parents came from Egypt, right? I love college football more than I love soccer. Why? Because I grew up in Austin, Texas Longhorns. I went to UT. So does that mean I am assimilating or isolating? Well, it depends. Do I drink a Budweiser while I'm watching the football game? What do you think? I don't. So this is what we mean by it's between isolation and assimilation. I'm going to watch probably every game of the season. I enjoy it that much. And because also I see lessons and it's actually a lot of things happening going on. But it is a long time. It's like 3 hours long, the game. But should I be drinking alcohol while I'm doing it? Right? So why can't I drink alcohol? What's wrong with that? Because Allah said not to, right? Right? So the same thing, like you see, mashallah, some are wearing, but then other sisters, They're very talented, very skilled. Some of them at the top of their skill set. In athletics, they say, I'm a Muslim girl, I'm going to dress modestly, I'm even going to wear hijab when I'm playing basketball, or the one who was doing fencing, she won the silver, or bronze. The African American sister, mashallah, she did great. She was wearing hijab and she was doing her fencing in the Olympics. Like, you're part of this society, whether you like it or not. Like, it affects you. I mean, the way that I'm talking now, I heard my teacher saying y'all, so I say y'all because we're in Texas. Like, even without thinking, right? So, and by the way, wherever you are, it's okay to be proud of where you came from. There's no problem. As long as you don't feel superior to another just because you're from that place. So, probably for your parents, they like that they came from Pakistan, or that they came from Palestine, or they came from, because that's their memories are there. And they miss it there, and whatever it is. For you, you grew up in America, so yes, you're going to be American. There's no problem to be American. It's not a bad thing. But you are Muslim. You're Muslim, meaning what? And we said it in the Sheikh's program. La ta'ata. Who's going to help me, especially the Arabic-speaking adults? La ta'ata li makhluqin fi ma'siyat al-khaliq. Very easy rule to remember. In English, la ta'ata li makhluq. Makhluk means something that is created. Every human being is created. Every collection of human beings are created. Right? So, la ta'ata li makhluk. I don't obey something that is created if it means what? Fi ma'siyatin. In disobedience to the Creator. By the way, this is not just in America. Same thing in Egypt. Right? And I don't want to go into the difficult situations. But there comes a time, if your superior officer tells you to do something, which is clearly what Allah will tell you not to do, then you say, oh, I don't. In America, they call it conscientious objector. Who is the most famous conscientious objector? Who is it? He should be one of your heroes. As American Muslims, he should be one of your heroes. Muhammad Ali. He said, why am I going to go fight in Vietnam? They didn't invade me. They didn't do anything to me. Why am I going to go kill them, and why am I going to go put my life on the line for? So he said, I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to go to Vietnam. They said, okay, fine. You take away your titles. He said, take away my titles. He lost so much money, probably millions of dollars. I don't think he actually did prison time, but he suffered tremendously. Now he's super popular, but at the time, everybody who loves him now started hating him. Right? Remember, these people that are icons in history, in their own time, they were the biggest enemies. You see all the cities, and they have streets that Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, like they have one in Austin, downtown, and you go to the Oasis Mosque. In his time, Martin Luther King, he was considered the biggest enemy to the United States. And the FBI was monitoring everything he was doing. And probably they were behind his assassination. I'm not going to make something I shouldn't say, but probably people in the establishment were behind his assassination. And then afterwards, they make a whole holiday about him, make a street sign about him. But in his time, they're the biggest enemies. Right?
The point to get the kid for protection, their identity.
You have multiple identities. That's the thing. You have multiple identities. You have, whether you're a male or female, whether you're a Muslim or a Jew or a Christian, you have an identity, a racial identity, an ethnic identity. But the most important grouping that you can have is anybody who says, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, your affinity automatically goes to that person. And that's al-hubbu fillah. You love someone for Allah. Not just because we're both from Egypt. No, it's because he is striving in da'wah. And also I want to strive in da'wah, so this connects us together. Your classmate in school says, La ilaha Muhammad Rasulullah. Doesn't matter if he's part of that group or this has three, that. He said that, so that's your, so when you talk about identity and who you associate with, number one should be anybody who says there is none to be worshipped except Allah and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, I am with him. The second most important grouping in terms of identity is you always want to be with the haqq. Alright, and this is where it's tricky to navigate because you may have a person, like at school, let's say something that a teacher, because the teachers, unfortunately, some of them do this, they're picking on another student because of, let's say, their skin color. And that student is not Muslim. Because that student is being picked on and being mazloom, you're automatically on his or her side. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, Allah is always on the side of justice. So, and of course this happens at the level of global situation as well. But let's say in school, there's something good that's being advocated for. For example, there's a group that wants to increase environmental awareness and how it's important to protect the planet. Well, that's a very Quranic teaching. So much of the Quran is all about nature and how we should reflect on nature and how we should be stewards and take care of. So even if they're not Muslim, I'm going to join them in the good thing. But when it comes to something that is contradicting to Islam, then I say, okay, this is lakum dinukum waliyadin. We see the same thing with the protests with Palestine, right? So you get a lot of different people who come to the protests, right? So what do? They're all there for a good cause, but there are certain things we're not going to do, we're not going to say, we're not going to dress or act a certain way. And when it's time for salah, we're going to stop and we're going to do our salah. And this is how many of them, they actually became Muslim. Other protesters, when they saw the Muslim students stop and pray, even after they were arrested, there's again a lot of viral videos. There's a video of a brother who was arrested and he's in the handcuffs or in the thing and he's doing his salah. Right? So many students now, they're becoming interested in Islam or even becoming Muslim. So this is to answer the question about identities. You have multiple identities, but the most important one is you are abd to Allah and you are muttabi' for Rasulullah. You are a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you are a follower of his messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I apologize, it looks like we're going inshallah.
Inshallah.
Subhanallah. Astaghfirullah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمد وسيلة وفضيلة وإقام محمد وبعده. Just one practical thing before the Arabic language. This is a great unifying force for all of us. We have many different identities, but we should all learn Arabic. Why? Because it's the language of the Quran. Because it is the access to understanding the words of Allah. And when you learn Arabic, and I learn Arabic, you learn Arabic, inshallah, one day, Sheikh Ihab can give the khutbah all in Arabic, and neither of them say anything in English, and it's actually going to be a 10-15 minute khutbah. And you will get it. And you know, even better, if you study the Quran, Sheikh Ihab can just say one verse, and you will get what he's trying to say. Okay? So please, make it a priority to learn Arabic. If some of the high schools, they offer Arabic, take Arabic. In college, take Arabic. Get the Babbel app. I'm sure they have Arabic on the Babbel app. Come to Sheikh Ihab, tell him, I want to learn Arabic. Come to community members who know Arabic, learn Arabic language. This is a common unifying force for people of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Don't think, oh, I don't understand it. No, learn to read it first, write it, and then start learning the meaning step by step, inshallah.
Sheikh, mashallah, so beneficial lecture. Iman, ilm, and amal. Iman, ilm, amal. Faith, knowledge, and act what you know, what you learn. And also protect our own identity. You can go and work and interact, but protect your no melting. Protect your own identity as a Muslim, as a believer, and use that as a da'wah. Spread the word before Iqam, inshallah. Any questions, brothers and sisters? Sir, can write, yes, brother. Alaykum assalam.
Hello.
You were talking about the Islamic identity which supersedes any other identity out there.
Yes.
However, there is one thing, we're talking to kids that are, young adults, teenagers, even little kids as young as 7. There is
this notion or this concept of peer pressure. You like to watch football. You don't want to sit there and get, the really dogs and the beer and all that. But then you're watching that, and then you have the commercials that come in between. And people will be making comments. If you don't laugh, if you don't joke with them, you feel like, well, you're isolated by them. Look at you, you're a nerd, you're this. How do you because knowing now that we're not that big as we would like to think, we're not that big yet. So we don't have a lot of because Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was talking about is basically you know by the company, you've got to keep a good company, or you even to 45, your iman goes up and down. So how do you encounter? What is your advice for kids that, like for instance, my son, he's the only Muslim in his classroom. So it will be challenging for him more than anything else. Yes, he's armed with iman and all that, but sometimes it can go down just because of that perception.
Yeah. I think the short answer to that, I believe based on personal experience, the best defense is a good offense. So we want to put into our boys and girls that they are not just Muslim, they are da'iyah, they are ambassadors for Islam in this country. Like you said, we're only 1% of the American population. If our young people are thinking, I need to be an ambassador of Islam, then they will shift the whole paradigm. And we talked about this before. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت الناس, and then at the end, وَلَوْ آمَنَ أَهْلُ الْكِتَابِ لَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُمْ. So flipping it. So I would say engaging them in da'wah, engaging them like not to be shy, to read, to research, to develop. But if they're in a situation where there's clear ma'asiyah and they cannot change it, and they're being pushed into it, then khalas, they leave. We need to teach them, how do you know when to leave? Same thing when people come to me and they say, well, I have to go to this Christmas party at work or whatever because my boss is telling me. At some point, some of the mashayikh say, look, just show up for 5 minutes, show your face, and khalas, you need to know when to leave, especially when they start making fools of themselves and so on. So, but again, I go back to that. I do like the idea of Islamic schools. Of course, there's a tuition, which makes it difficult for parents who can't afford it, especially if they have a lot of children. I do like the idea, especially the after-school programs of Muslim families. When I was growing up, it was Muslim families getting together with their kids. So you can try to reinvent that kind of a community within a community. Pick 4 or 5 families who got 3 or 4 kids each, go out for picnics. This community is small enough for us to do like community picnics and let the kids mix with those kids, inshallah ta'ala, so that there is that level of like cohesiveness within the community. But I do believe we need to activate like every man and woman, boy and girl, to be ambassadors. You don't all have to be speakers, by the way. You don't all have to be like, some people are good at writing. Some people are good at blogging. Some people are good at making podcasts. Some people are good at researching and mixing. So, but whatever you're doing, figure out how can I, when I'm done, at the end of the day, I can face Allah, I can face His Messenger who said, "Balighu anni wa ayah," that I did that, If you came here like our parents came here, our grandparents came here for education or for financial opportunity or for political freedom, whatever the reasons are, because of war or whatever, we can always renew our intention, right, Sheikh? We can make our intention now for da'wah. We renew our intention. Okay, I came here for this. Let me just being Muslim now is in and of itself spreading the deen. so inshallah ta'ala.
Any other question?
Especially the young people. The young people are so nice and quiet. You never know what y'all are thinking because y'all are like careful. Especially the young men.
Yeah.
Young women, if they were here, they would ask questions and talk. But young men, we like to keep our cards close to our vest.
Any questions here inside? No questions? Inshallah. Jazakallah khair, Mawlana. It was very beautiful, very beneficial. MashaAllah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept Ameen Ya Rabb al-Alameen. May Allah Jalla wa Ala guide our youth, our kids, our family, spouse, neighbors. Ameen Ya Rabb al-Alameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite all of us in Jannah. Ameen, Ameen Ya Rabb al-Alameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give our youth power, strong faith, and ranks in dunya and akhirah. Ameen, Ameen Ya Rabb al-Alameen. جزاكم الله خيرا وصلى اللهم وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر.
The kids come here for salah. Kids come for salah.
So make your line straight, be close to your brothers, making a good line is part of establishing the salah itself. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een, Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. وإن طائفتان من المؤمنين اقتتلوا فأصلحوا بينهما فإن بغت إحداهما على الأخرى فقاتلوا التي تبغي حتى تفيء إلى أمر الله فإن فاءت فأصلحوا بينهما بالعدل وأقسطوا إن الله يحب المقسطين. إنما المؤمنون إخوة فأصلحوا بين أخويكم واتقوا الله لعلكم ترحمون. يا
أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكن خيرا منهن ولا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب بئس الاسم الفسوق بعد الإيمان ومن لم يتب فأولئك هم الظالمون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير آمين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم ولا تجسسوا ولا يغتب بعضكم بعضا أيحب أحدكم أن يأكل لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه واتقوا الله إن الله تواب رحيم. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, check tomorrow for Fajr, Iqam will be 16, and Maghrib 8:20, Isha 9:30, inshallah.
These are your kids?
Yeah.
These were? Okay. Assalamu alaikum.